Excuse me, waiter, there's a crushing realism in my fantasy game. This is one of the few times I wasn't the DM, and I was super excited about being able to play. The DM pitched a fantasy romp through a homebrew campaign with a few custom rules. Session 0 comes around and the rules are basically a full overhaul. DM didn't like how unrealistic 5e is and thought it could use some sprucing up. He had like 14 pages of rule changes, but here are just a few highlights. 1. The action you take on a turn changes your initiative score. We had to recalculate initiative every single turn. Not only did it take forever to do the maths and check everyone had the right modifiers, it was a -1 modifier per spell level for casting spells, and -5 if you used a bonus action, as well as an action, so the sorcerer and rogue of the party were screwed. 2. Armor gave a damage reduction instead of AC. While not an inherently terrible idea, it doesn't really work with the rest of the maths of 5e. Some attacks would never get through the armor, even with max damage, in both directions, and it made Rule 3 even worse. 3. Any crit, regardless of damage, had a chance to inflict serious or even permanent wounds. 4. Spell slots didn't restore after a long rest. Instead, when you rolled a hit dice, that determined how many slots you'd get back. I.e., if you rolled a 4, you could get back 4 first levels or 2 second levels, etc. The DM was a good friend, and although most of the party weren't super excited about the rules, some of us stuck it out for friendship's sake. I made a paladin, the DM's favorite class, and lo and behold, the paladin was buff beyond belief. The fine familiar horse she summoned didn't need to sleep because it was a celestial, and its charge attack counted as magical. With passives, feats, and armor combined, everything that hit me had -9 reduction to their damage, and my AC was still up at 17 because of the shield rules. With my D10 hit dice instead of the sorcerer's D6, I almost always got all my spell slots back, while the casters struggled. The spellcasters, on the other hand, were absolutely screwed over. They had no health, no protection, no spell slots, and were always last to act. If the sorcerer used Quicken Spell ever, that was at least a -6 to his initiative, -5 from bonus action plus spell level. Magic in this setting was rare, so monsters always went for the casters, even if they were literally cowering in the background, unable to do anything. There were encounters where my character took 0 damage, and the sorcerer went down 3 times. The DM would bend over backward to give the fighter and me shit, literally white knighting my white knight. Meanwhile, he'd ensure any spell would fail horribly, like having rain put out wall of fire, or find traps not find the pitfall, because the leaves covering it block line of sight. We were hunting a vampire through a city, and were fairly sure we knew who it was, but this vampire was powerful, and immune to the usual vampire detection methods when we tried them, including Divine Sense, and a homebrew edition, being burned by holy symbols. This vampire even mysteriously had amnesia when the cleric used Zone of Truth to just ask him if he was the vampire. We were unamused by the twist when it came. Later, when we tracked the lair down, the sorcerer was attacked by a swarm of rats. They crit, dealing 2 damage, and as the party shrugs and goes to move on, the DM tells us to wait. He rolls a D100 and declares that the sorcerer loses his right hand. Loses, as in the hand is on the ground and he's bleeding out. By this point, investment in the game is low, so we stick the hand in a bag, heal the bleeding wrist, and just leave, since our heavy-hitting spellcaster couldn't cast anything with an S component anymore. The local king pays a priest to reattach the hand. So realistic, right? And we get back to the story. If I told you this game ended in a TPK, I doubted it'd surprise you, but it was worse than that. The game ended because we forgot to purify the water one time, caught dysentery, aka we shit ourselves, and despite prestidigitation, DM insisted all of our armor smelt too bad to use, and we'd have to buy new stuff or wear nothing. After losing a PC's hand to rats and then this, we came to the realization that this campaign was never going to be a fantasy, and we all suggested we play something else. This campaign died of dysentery, as said by u/Mr. Andrew J. I couldn't agree more. D&D 5e may not be for everyone, but it really is accessible to almost everyone, if you leave it the way it is. This next story features a paladin, but in a much different light. Why is it always the paladins that really lean into their alignment too hard, or their deity in an uncomfortable way? 2 words, lawful stupid. This is another tale from my paid DM adventures. One of the things I see a lot is people who just want to conk out and play silly little tropes in short games. It makes sense. Who wants to invest a lot in a character for 2 to 3 short sessions with strangers? So when this group handed in their character sheets, no alarm bells were rung. There were 5 players, but only 2 were problematic. The lawful stupid paladin and the chaotic annoying bard. The Paladin was a special case. She was lawful neutral and would follow the letter of the law precisely and firmly. I personally prefer it when PCs follow the law. It means I'm much less likely to have to rein in a torture scene, deal with the party stealing from each other, or such shenanigans. But this Paladin would only do something if the law of her god said she could. Every few seconds, does my god let me open doors without knocking? Does my god prefer if I eat bread with jam or peanut butter? She wouldn't wipe her ass if her god didn't specifically allow it. Very annoying in and out of game. When I told her that I'd let her know what the god wasn't happy with, she got very annoyed and started accusing me and everyone at the table of cutting her RP short. At the same time, the bard was 10 different characters in one. True chaotic, none of his decisions were making any sense. When I asked to quit it, he handed me the classic, "It's what my character would do," and said he had a mysterious backstory which justified everything. I asked if he wanted to share that with me, the DM. He said no. If they weren't paying for my time, I'd have dropped them on session 1, but alas, I was saving up for a holiday. Playing with the two of them together was like herding cats. By the time the Paladin had decided she was allowed to do something, the Bard had flitted to the next thing, like a schizophrenic butterfly. He picked fights with NPCs who'd done nothing wrong, buddied up to obviously evil guys, and skipped off without the group to do whatever the heck he wanted. The plot and game quickly derailing, I suggest we take a break, and as usual I take some time to discuss things with all the players. They weren't thrilled, but wanted to keep playing. So I was stuck with them for yet another session of horror. The Bard decides he's going to rob a grave. Long story short, they were ghost hunting, which is obviously not legal, so the Paladin tries to stop him, and then she realizes that her god wouldn't like her hurting a friend, so she can't do anything to him. Unfortunately, she says it aloud, and I could practically hear the Bard thinking. So, he hits her. The players had agreed PvP would be allowed, as long as it didn't get personal. He wasn't using any weapons, but she couldn't do anything back to him. I try to intervene, but the Paladin tells me, "Nah, I've got this," and rolls a nat 1 to persuade him to stop it. I try to step in again, and one of the other players tells me to let this play out, and the Paladin agrees, because he won't seriously hurt me or anything. If you've ever seen that YouTube video of cooking a chicken by slapping it, it was like that. Slow, torturous, painful to watch. That wee bastard Bard slapped all 44 of her HP down to 0, one at a time. I didn't allow him to actually kill her, and luckily for me, the other players were in absolute hysterics. Paladin is freaking out, really annoyed. I point out she could have just stopped him, or, walked away, and that she's still alive. The Bard then turns to slap one of the others, and the whole party just jumps him and smoked him in one turn. His last words were, "I don't regret anything." The Paladin dropped out after that, but the Bard re-rolled a much less annoying character. Hippie Moosin had this to say, "Aw, lawful stupid and chaotic a-hole, the two moron archetypes that have existed as long as alignments themselves. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? If this story is anything to go by, something really dumb." One of the users, SnakeBit1995, said, "I kind of feel bad for the Paladin. Yeah, she's overdoing the line of her god thing, but while annoying, it's mostly harmless. The Bard slapping a party member until they pass out is a real duck move, IMO. I'd rather deal with a lawful stupid who's at least trying than a chaotic ass who thinks he's so funny." "It's what my character would do" is the worst phrase anyone can utter in a game of D&D. I hear it and my jaw clenches. While this may be a world of fantasy and fun, people still need to make normal decisions. And I'm sure the Paladin's god would have allowed her to defend herself. What kind of lunacy is that? Please let us know what you think and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Our videos are posted every Tuesday and Friday, so stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.